Okay. And before we start this meeting, everybody, let's say happy birthday to our past international director, Melvin Bray. And he's giving us a training on his birthday. So that is
Oh,
most incredible thing. So thank
here.
you so much, PID Mel, for
Well,
giving
very
us a
fine.
training. And one more time, happy birthday from everyone.
Happy birthday.
Thank
Happy
you so
birthday,
much.
Mel.
Yeah.
Very good.
Happy birthday, Mel.
Thank
Hey
you.
Mel, is it today or tomorrow?
No, it's today.
It's
It's
today.
today.
Yep.
Oh wow! Happy
But
But
birthday!
I think he did not post that button on Facebook, so we all can get a notification.
It's actually comes up on my Facebook and keeps telling me who you're going to have money to be donated to. I'm
SMS
like,
and email.
I'm not doing that
Yeah,
this
yeah,
year.
that's correct.
I'm just
Yeah.
not going to do that this year.
All right. So
Well,
yes, we can start now.
Okay.
Go
Gonna
ahead.
mute. Yeah, gonna mute everybody. Varsha.
Yeah, just mute everybody so we can hear and learn so much from PID Mel.
Peaceful volunteership. That's a new-
Okay.
Let's get. Well,
First
good
of
evening.
all, I just want to say it's a pleasure to join all of you. We have two people from L and everybody else I'm not recognizing from down here, so they must be by you. And who's the young lady from Barbados?
Okay,
Somebody
she
said that
is
maybe-
Eleanor.
Eleanor.
I don't see a picture coming up, so I'm
Oh, she's here. Eleanor, can you start
Eleanor
your
is
picture?
Good night, everybody. How are you?
Hello.
Good.
during my two years on the board, one of my co-directors happened to be coming from Barbados down there as well. And we had a really good time with her, and it's glad to have somebody come on here from that far away, because right now I'm wishing I was there because it's too cold outside here in New Jersey. So,
Okay, so yeah. All right, let's start then.
Mel, from the picture, it seems you are in Hawaii.
Yeah.
that's what it
From your
seems like.
background, you seem to be in Hawaii.
And that's how I fool a lot of people.
I was telling you, that's the best place to be right now, right? To be in Hawaii. But anyway, good evening, everyone. It's great to see everyone here this evening. Thank you all for taking the time and effort to join us this evening for the start of our district mid-year leadership refresher series. We had our first one last July as we started Lion Year 2021-2022. I am Lion Rohel Bautista, the GLT coordinator of District 16J, and glad that we are having this refresher series again, our mid-year or midwinter version, if you may. And I am happy to MC this event. Our topic for this evening is Club Secretary and Treasurer. After the presentation, there will be a question and answer portion, so we encourage everyone to type your pertinent questions in the chat box. And to start the ball rolling, I would like to call District 16J Governor Lion Varsha Naik for a brief talk and to introduce this evening's facilitator.
Before you go and invite the governor, I joined because I got a note that there is $50 raffles that Mel and you are giving. That's why I joined.
Uh-huh.
Such funny jokes.
Well, as soon as you pay up for the ticket, then we'll figure out how we're going to reimburse you for your winnings.
Thank you, Nalit. First of all, thank you so much, PID Mel, for joining this midwinter refresher training session for District 16J. It's your birthday. So one more time, happy birthday to you. And thank you, GLT Rohel, for taking this initiative to introduce the midwinter refresher, because refreshers are always good. We like refreshers to regenerate ourselves and go into a next era. So this season is come with the four episodes. First is secretary and the treasurer, then club president by none other than our international director, Jeff Gans. Then we have membership orientation again with Jeff Gans and the My Lion. These four elements are very important for a progress of club. And we are so blessed that today our presenter and our instructor, our facilitator is none other than past international director Mel Bray. So I'm just going to read about Mel Bray. It is very important to everybody know about Mel Bray. So Melvin Bray, our past international director from Whitney, New Jersey, USA, was elected to serve a 2-year term as a director of Lions Club International at the association's 98th International Convention held in Honolulu, Hawaii, June 26 through 30th June 2015. International Director Mel Bray is a retired bank vice president and a regional manager, a member of the Toms River Lions Club since 1973. He was held many offices within the association, including club president, club treasurer, club secretary, club membership chairperson, council secretary, cabinet treasurer, council chairperson, district peace poster contest chairperson, district LCIF chairperson, multiple district GMT coordinator, and a region chairperson. He is also the executive director of the Lions Eye Research Foundation of New Jersey. In recognition of his service to the association, International Director Mel Bray has received numerous awards, including the Club President Excellence Award, a Leadership Award, Senior Builder Key Award, Life Membership Award, and a 3 International Presidents Award. He is also a Progressive Melvin John Fellow. In addition to his Lions activities, past International Director Mel Bray is active in numerous professional and community organizations, including the Sight and Handicap Foundation of Ocean County, Funds of the New Jersey Blind and the New Jersey Camp for Blind Children, International past director Lion Mel Bray and his wife Ginny, also Lion and a progressive man. So let's welcome past international director Mel Bray and start learning the club secretary and the treasurer training. Thank you, PID Mel, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, DG Parsha, and thank you, Rohel, as well. It's an interesting time to be doing this because we do need a lot of refreshers. And the one thing that most people forget to do is a lot with the treasury, and we've got slides for that. And at the end, if you're looking for a lot of slides and you're looking for us to go in and out to the international website, we're not doing that tonight. You're going to be seeing another program for the My Lion at the end of the week, and I'm sure they're going to be doing that directly with LCI's website. So we're not going to go there. We're going to tell you a lot of things that you need to know as the secretary. And get you ready for that, and a lot of things to help you as a treasurer so that you and the secretary as the treasurer can work together and help to guide the club and make sure everything is done according to the legalities we have to live with. So my first thing I always tell people when I install the secretary is you've got the worst job in the world. It's the most labor intensive job that you could possibly have, and it requires that the person in that position has a computer, is able to communicate with good skills, and they have an internet connection. Most of the clubs that I've ever dealt with in the last 15 years where the secretary didn't have computer skills, didn't get information, it was constantly a problem trying to get to them. It's a problem for the other members of the club to communicate with them. And the club kind of starts falling apart little by little, because, well, this person's been the secretary for 25 years. Well, that doesn't work anymore in a technology age we're in. The person must be able to get on the computer and go out and do different things on the computer. So that's one of the big requirements when the nominating committee is looking for that office or position. They have to make sure that that person has the skills and has the equipment to do the job. It's not something that you can't learn. But you do have to have the equipment to be able to learn it and do it effectively. You're going to have to file the club activity reports, and you're going to have to file the membership reports on a monthly basis. And so that's something that a lot of clubs are not doing. And I did find the other day that my club missed one for December, and I still haven't figured out quite why, but we missed one for December. So that's the first time in like 15 years we've missed a report. But the information that you're going to be getting as far as the input that you're going to be able to do for your club is the president can go in and do a lot of things. He can make changes to the records of the membership. The secretary can go in and do the same thing. The treasurer, the person who holds the keys to all the money, can't go in and change anything. The only thing they can do is actually go in and get the information for the billings and make the online payment with the credit card. That has to be done through the treasurer. It doesn't work trying to do it as the coordinator or as the president or the secretary. So that was one of the things. There's certain levels and everybody can do certain things, but those are important ones, because if you happen to be the secretary treasurer and you're in your secretary mode when you sign in as your higher title, you're going to have to switch out and make sure you go into the treasurer to do the bill paying. There's also another person who can turn around and help to do some of the changes. Again, not who's the treasurer.
Mel, let me interrupt for a second. This is Lily. Do we want to show the people where they can log in and look at it stuff, or that is not
Exactly. We discussed that before the presentation started, and we decided we weren't going to do that tonight.
Okay.
Because
apologies.
we only have a half an hour to do both topics. So we don't have time to go in and out. If this were an hour and a half, we'd be going out there and showing everybody all the things, but it's going to be repeated in the My Lion program later on, I'm sure. And I'm sure Jeff is going to do some of that with one of his programs later on as well, when he's doing president. So for tomorrow. So we're not going to try and duplicate all that stuff in each of the presentations. And that's the reason why it's time constraints. It's a very short program that we have time for. Okay, what I was going to say is that the club can also designate someone as a club coordinator, and that person can take the burden off of the secretary or the president from trying to do all the reports and things. That person can be assigned some of them to do as well. Again, in my club, I'm the president. I am the coordinator. I'm the PID. I'm something else. I've got 5 different selections I can use to go into my LCI, but each of them has restrictions of what I can actually do in each one. As a director or past director, I can look at every club around the world, but I can't do any changes to any of those clubs at all. So I have to switch titles back and forth to be in my club, where I can actually make those kind of changes if they're necessary. So a club coordinator is also somebody who can be helpful. As a secretary, you have to do a lot of minutes. You have to maintain the minutes for your club. And it's really important that in most cases, those minutes come out probably within 3 or 4 days of the particular meeting, because when the membership gets those minutes and they actually read through them and see, oh my God, I was supposed to work on so-and-so for the next meeting and I haven't even started it yet. I totally forgot. They need that reminder that comes from the minutes a lot of times, other than one of the vice presidents calling up for the committee and saying, hey, do you have that stuff we're going to talk about? There's somebody who wants to come in to join us. I'm not sure who that is.
I'm taking care of that, Melia.
Okay, I just saw it sitting there for a couple of times. I'm like, okay, I'll
No,
just mention
I'm
it.
taking care of that.
All right, so getting the minutes out is very important. Keeping the attendance records is very important. And one of the things that the secretary needs to do when they're keeping the attendance and marking down who is here and who's not here is anybody that ends up being out for 2 consecutive meetings, at least, if they haven't called either their sponsor to say, I can't make the meeting, talk to the president or talk to the secretary or the treasurer and say, I can't make the meeting because I'm going to be out of town for work today. That's an excusable reason to be not here, obviously work. But if they're missing 2 meetings in a row, then you start to wonder, is it really the work, or is it maybe they're dissatisfied with something in the club, so that we can start attacking that back door and closing it, find out why they're having issues with getting to meetings, and see if maybe it's a ride. Maybe it's just they didn't win the lottery this week and they overbought the lottery ticket so they can't afford the meal, whatever it is. But you got to talk to the people and find out why they're not there for that particular meeting. You're, okay. The secretary, according to LCI, and I will tell you that I don't do this in my club, and we haven't done this in my club for probably 30 years. But according to LCI, the secretary is the person who is supposed to send out the dues bills and collect the payments, record the payments in the paper ledgers that they still have available if you want to use them, and then go and hand everything over to the treasurer to turn around and make the deposit for the dues or the raffle or whatever it happens to be that you happen to get money for. And in our club, because we use electronic billing through QuickBooks, it's not feasible for the secretary to be involved with the QuickBooks in order to send out the dues bills. It all has to go through the system to maintain the proper record for doing the tax return. So we don't really do that in my club because it's not feasible. And a lot of clubs that use Quicken or QuickBooks don't actually have the secretary sending out the dues letters, the dues bills. But according to LCI, that's the way they actually would prefer that the secretary get all the money stuff first and then transfer it later. So you have to figure out how you're going to work with that within your own club, whatever you set as a policy. When we went on to Quicken, probably around 2000 or so, we just decided at that point that the machine's going to do all the work. So why are we going to have the secretary sit down and hand write out these dues bills and take a lot of time when I can do it in 4 minutes on the computer and just push a button and say, send out the dues letters. So you got to work that out within your club as a policy. The other thing is I just did that part. The secretary has to be involved with a lot of correspondence. Unfortunately, we get, like we get in your regular mail, you get a lot of duplicate requests from organizations, whether it's the American Heart Association, juvenile diabetes, the Special Olympics. You can go down the list of most of the things that we have within our approved projects. And you might be getting letters from them 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times during the year. If you've already discussed that particular item, you've already made your contribution. It's really not necessary. You as the secretary has to bring that up, take time to rediscuss what you already discussed. You decided not to send any more money, or you decided you were going to defer money. That's a different story. Then you got to bring it back up. But if you're not going to be planning on doing that, and you say it the first time, here's our $100 contribution or $250, then you don't, as the secretary, have to keep bringing that same paperwork back up again every time you get it in the mail. We have 2 in my club that comes to our post office box, and every single week since the beginning of July, we've gotten the letter asking for more money. We can't give more money to one charity every single week. So we don't even bring that kind of stuff up, and it saves time in your meetings. And you need to do that because everybody wants to get in and get out. Where did it go to? Here. I do have notes. Okay. The secretary should be preparing any emails or I'm sorry, should be receiving any emails or any other kind of correspondence. And when they have to reply, the secretary should be doing the replies, unless it's something that actually pertains to the a particular club, and that, I'm sorry, a particular committee, not club. And then the chairman of that committee might have to respond to it rather than the secretary. So you got to make sure that stuff moves back and forth where it really has to go or needs to go. As the secretary, you're going to set up an agenda, and the most important thing to do is to ask the president if there's something they want on the agenda. In my case, that I usually ask the secretary, you got anything? And we go back and forth, and then I send out the agenda, because that's just the way we've been working it since you joined our club. And so we haven't fixed what wasn't broken. So you have to make sure that there's things that go on the agenda to make sure that you meet certain timeframes. And some of those things are regarding the elections and things like that. So you have to start with a nominating process, and you have to work through that to get it to be something that's finished within the time frame that you need to have your information sent into LCI. So you start up something like an election, your nominating committee should be appointed sometime in December. And that should be something that they do for December and January. And they should be bringing the nominations to the board for your February meeting, and then have it at your January meeting, so that you then have a February general membership meeting. And that's the first time you have a general reading, which is required to have 2 readings of the nominations. Then the next reading has to come at the next general session, which would be in March. So you have 2 of those to happen. You end up having to have an election at the end of March or sometime in March, so that the information can go into LCI the first week in April, because they print these really nice little books that has every club and every district and a whole bunch of officers and past officers and all that in the book, and who's the governors of each of these districts. And when you start doing 45,000 clubs and things like that, it takes up a lot of space, and it takes a lot of time to prepare it. So if you don't get your information into LCI in April, there's a good chance that last year's officers, they're going to be dropped. And then when that happens, the governor turns around and gets all your mail until you get it straightened out with the records with LCI of who should get that mail. So that's always a challenge. And if you look in some of the LCI records, they'll actually tell you that you have to have your election in May. It defeats their own purpose when they have that in their publication, but they haven't changed it. So I make sure that I tell people the time frame you kind of have to be into. Maybe Jeff will take that up with the directors at another time. Okay. You're going to see a lot of email. One of my members said she was looking through something today and she had thousands of email. I'll only tell her that in my inbox alone, I've got 3,289 emails. I can't tell you what's in my deleted files and the other ones, because when you get done with it, it's around 7,000. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of time to go in and hold that key down and say, delete all these, because you got to look at them and make sure you still don't need them. With what people send me and ask me sometimes, it ends up having to be something you have to keep for 2 or 3 years before the situation is actually resolved. So you got to be careful of what you just discard. Okay. Does everybody, and there's no way for you to tell me this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Does everybody know that the activity that they really have to put into the My Lion, and the reason that you need to all get in there, Jeff reported this a week or so ago, we're at like 40% of our clubs reporting the information you need in My Lion for what activity you have had, monies that you've raised, people that you've helped. When you get 40% and you see that our numbers are closing in on getting the 300 million people served, you know that if we're 60% haven't done it, we're way over that number already. But we can't boast that around the world until we get some proof here in the records and say, here's the numbers from my clubs, and this is the projects that they did, this is the money they raised, and this is how many people were actually helped by that service project. So we need to do a really good job of getting all of our activity into the My Lion, so that international can use that when they're going out and they're looking for other grants and you're looking for partners and they want to do other projects. If they can show that we're already doing it or part of us are doing it, that's going to help that partner that they're talking to join us a lot faster than if they just see that, you know, we're asking to do something in that group and they have no idea that we've done it before and we can't prove we've done it before. So it's really important that the activity gets in on that particular report. John, where are you? Okay.
Mail as a side note, My Lion's activity that we report does not get reflected. You go after a week, it's not there. It has been reported to international. Just want to let you know that.
Okay, I'm not sure why it's not there, because I found stuff I put back in July on our record, but it may not be there. I haven't been there in about a month and a half now. Okay. So So we're at 17 minutes already, folks, just in case you're wondering. So we're getting pretty close to past the halfway mark.
You
Okay,
can go a little bit more longer, no problem, Mel. It's interesting to listen to you.
Trust me, they already know that you give me a microphone, they're in trouble. The only problem with this is they can hit that button that says leave, and we don't want them to leave. So
No.
we don't want to keep them too long either.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a list of things that I put down, and actually comes down to 8 different items. The secretary has to keep the club on track for whatever the goals happen to be. Your president, he's got the easy job. He comes up with the ideas. We want to take the club and do these projects. We want to set these goals for this or that. And then he turns it loose to everybody else. He gets to delegate down that whole chain of all the officers and members to get the projects done that he would like to get done. The secretary is the person who has to kind of keep the ship on course to make sure all those things are actually going to get done, bringing them up to the president, bringing them up to the chairman of different committees, and reminding them that this is what we have to do, this is when we have to do it by, and that sort of thing. So that the secretary's job starts with corralling all of us and herding the sheep, so to speak. The secretary also has to, we mentioned something about the nominating committee, that she has to remind, or he or she has to remind the president to constitute that committee in December. And these are all going to be in a handout you're going to get emailed to you at the end. So don't try and scribble everything down. So the nominating committee should be appointed in December. The first reading should be for the district, for the club in February. And then you have to have a second one, which would be in March. A lot of people want to, at the first meeting, start nominating from the floor and add to the nominating committee's report. That's not the way you do it. They have to wait until the day that you're actually going to have the election of the officers. And then before you have that election, you have to set it up so that someone makes a motion for nominations from the floor. If there are any nominations, they need a first and a second for the position. Then you have to adjust how you're going to do your election. And then after the people have been nominated from the floor, someone has to close the nominations from the floor before you can go on with the election for the other officers that aren't contested, and then have an election for that person who is contested. So you need to make sure that you follow those through. You have those motions so that everything's done according to Robert's Rules of Order. And I shouldn't use those words because Jeff's on and he's going to tell me I did something wrong. Okay. So how do you really turn around? And I just told you the answer is when you have someone who's nominated from the floor, you have to then have a separate vote for that person because they weren't notified prior to that for the election. So you got to do the vote and see which one's going to come out on top. The one thing that many of us don't do, or probably 99% of us, and maybe Jeff has a better number, but most of us don't actually turn around and use paper ballots. LCI would prefer that we use paper ballots for the simple reason that if there should be a situation that someone is challenging the vote for the election of any of the officers or positions, and the ballots have to be preserved for 3 years. So if you have that situation where you do have someone who contests the voting, then you have to be able to say, okay, here's the papers. That's the ballot that just blurred over your sheet and your screen. And then you can turn around and show them, or show the proper people, that this is the count, these are the people, this is what we've done. And so we're correct or we're incorrect. Sometimes you might find that a mistake was made if the ballots were improperly counted. You never, and I've seen this happen once in the past, maybe 10 years ago, an election was held and the people running the election, the election person and their assistant who was counting the ballots, is immediately after they counted the ballots and they announced it, the chairperson took them out to the hotel and said, okay, shred these, please. They didn't give time for anybody to verify. They didn't give time for the challenged to take place through the proper procedures, and now they have no records to back up what they said. So that's not the situation you want to get into, because it can create very hard feelings, as it did at that particular situation. Okay. All right, we still have 8 minutes. The meeting notices that should be sent out and remind people about the meeting should go out at least a week. Now, Valerie's on here from my club, and she'll tell you, I haven't got mine for Wednesday night yet because I haven't been home to write them, to write it out, but I need to do that. But when you turn around and you get people to be notified of what they have to do through the minutes, and then reminded again at the meeting is going to take place in a week, that gives your membership time to actually do something on the request that was made to them at a previous meeting, so that when you come into the meeting, you don't have 10 people for every project saying no report. When I go to a meeting and they tell me there's no report, that tells me that they just didn't do a darn thing. Not that there wasn't something that could be done, but it's not helping us to advance our goal when they come up with no report. So you need to let people be reminded. We're all adults, but we all need reminders. So we need to do that in a timely fashion. In my particular case, Valerie would also tell you that Mel's on the phone, or Mel's sending us a text individually to remind us of those things so that we actually can get them done. The other thing that I've noticed in a number of clubs and organizations is the secretary doesn't have a list of all the members of the committees that have been assigned by the president. Somebody needs to make sure that that's available, so when a question comes up that something's for, say, the fundraising committee, you know who the chair is, you know who the members are, and so they can actually respond and make a report about that particular project. So that's one of the things you need to have with you as a secretary. Another thing that's very important to your membership, and really to LCI, is when you do go out on the records for individuals, there's a space to put in the different titles and positions that they've had that comes up as part of their history. So when you're looking to see if someone is eligible to be in a position for running for the second vice district governor, you can find out that they were a zone chair in this time, they were someplace in this time, and they actually qualify, rather than telling them, oh, we don't have any record of that. So we can't use that. And then you have to go to LCI and see if they have a record of it and see who qualifies. And they have better records of it than most of our clubs do, I can tell you that. So we've had situations on that particular topic. So make sure that those get in there. And there are some things that you can't put in yourself. And I can't tell you what they exactly are. I've only had 1 or 2 of them in the 49 years as a Lion, but they have it now that only some things can't be changed. And like if you put in somebody's name incorrectly, you can't change it no matter what position you have. You have to go to LCI and explain to them why, and they can change it if they want to. I was asked several years ago to change somebody's name because she was using her pseudonym for everything, and we didn't know it. The person who put her application in with her pseudonym, and LCI put it in. We put it in the records and went back to them and said that, well, this person is really this person. They said, can you prove it? We had nothing to be able to go back and prove it, so her record remained with her pseudonym. So that's kind of interesting. Okay. We still have time. Yeah, we got 4 minutes. The president, secretary, and treasurer are going to receive, especially the new ones coming in, are going to receive a username and a passcode from LCI. You should get that in probably mid to late April or the early part of May. And it's going to allow you to go in and look at the records, get yourself familiar. So when you take over in July with your actual position, you'll be aware of how to get around the site. I've never been into the site being real comfortable and easy to get around. A lot of times it's very frustrating for a lot of the members, Over the last 2 years, I've gotten a little bit better with accepting that I can't change it. So I just live with it and we make it work. But if you have been a member of My Lion and you've been out to My LCI and you have a user password and a username and a user password, LCI generally will leave that as your assigned passcode and username to get into the records once you're in these officer positions. And they'll use that for no matter how often you change them. My stuff is still the same as when I was the president of the club many years ago. So you don't have to wait for them to send it to you. But if you try and go into these things and it tells you you're not authorized, then you got to get to the IT department in Oak Brook and say, listen, this is me. My number is blah, 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 whatever it is. And I'm the treasurer and I need to be able to have access to the reports and the information. And they will set you up. It'll take a couple of days, but they'll set you up in the system so you can actually do your job. So that's going to be something you have to watch out for.
Control shock up, Jenny.
I'm sorry. Someone just said something?
I was just ordering my dinner. My apologies.
Oh, okay. Did you order some for us too?
Absolutely, it's chickpeas.
So, okay, well, whatever it is, we'll eat it. All right, so you're going to have to make sure just before the first week in July, you've been on the system, you've tried it, you know where to go. And if you can't get in, don't hesitate in April or May to call them up and say, hey, I'm going to be the president in July 1, and I can't get into the records and check anything, because you have to have that access. They will make it for you rather quickly. And everything we do is based on that information. If you're transferring members and things like that, I had occasion to look up one of our clubs that had its charter taken away last year, and I wanted to see what the membership looked like. And so I asked for the membership record for that particular club as a director, and I got everything that they had back to 2000 when they were first initiated as a club. So if you're looking for records, LCI has a lot of information for you. And that particular club went through 146 members from 2000 to 2020. And then when they folded, I think they had 35 members. But it's the record's there, the information's there, and the coordinators are all around. I can help with some of the stuff. Varsha definitely can help. I'm sure there's other people in your area in Jay that can help. And Barbados will help you long distance, there's no problem. But we'd love to come to visit you anyway. But you can turn around and get a lot of help between the district, the club having a coordinator, and the district having a coordinator. And the multiple district also has a coordinator who can help with all the clubs in the district. So it's real important, if you don't have success getting in, don't get frustrated. Just give us a call, give one of us a call, and we'll direct you, we'll help you. I can't tell you that I'm an expert, because I'm not, but I can get my way in, and I can get to where I have to go, and I get the reports and the activity stuff in. So if I can do that, I think I can help some of you who may not have those skills. And probably after the second time you try to do it, you're going to be able to do it just as well. But don't hesitate to contact us. Okay. At the end, we're going to, as I said, we're going to send you copies of the secretary's report, secretary's training, and all the things that I've said to you is all listed in there. Number of years ago, going back before 2014, somebody said to me, you're going to have to teach the treasurer's report, treasurer's position. And so they said, how are you going to do that? I said, I'll do a quick PowerPoint. It's no big deal. So I put a PowerPoint together, and I did manage today to make sure that, yesterday to make sure that that was up to date, and the secretary is up to date, because I only finished typing that one up 10 minutes before the program started. So your treasurer. Everybody thinks the treasurer's job is just to take care of the checkbook and make sure everything balances. The treasurer actually, in my opinion, with the secretary, has to be the person who's going to tell the board when they want to do something, yes, you can, or no, you can't. They have to know the finances that they have to be able to do the project that's coming up. Many times when you have a group of older lions in your club, they have a philosophy from back in the 60s that if you earned this money or you were donated this money back then, by the end of that year in June, you wrote out enough checks to evaporate all the funds you had. Now, that worked back then because you had mostly businessmen who had their own individual businesses or belonged to larger corporations that were backing them financially. And if they needed money for something, they could just ask these guys to donate more money, and they would. They didn't have to have something to carry over. In today's market, we have too many projects going on that require funding. My club doesn't meet in July and August as a regular meeting. We have our board meetings, but that's the only ones we have. So when we're doing a project that's maybe going to be something for September or something that's like our car show that's going to be in August, we have to make sure there's enough funds before we close out the year to carry over and hold on to fund buying those trophies and buying the food and buying the other things that we have to distribute and whatever tchotchkes and bags and whatever we need to do. We have to make sure we have that, whether it's just the coffee to, make 50 or 100 cups of coffee or something. The money's got to be coming from somewhere. And you can't always ask your members, especially in today's market, to cough up $100 extra because the pandemic's hurt too many people financially. So you always have to make sure as the treasurer that you're looking farther ahead than just this year, so you have the money to do the things you need to do. So that's a big responsibility. And one of the big keys of international is that you have to have an administrative account. You have to have a charities or an activity account that you donate money to other people from. You have to have a raffle account. If you have a raffle license, you have to have a separate raffle account, and only monies from the raffle go in, and only the expenses get paid out from the raffle, and the portion that the raffle people win has to be paid out of that. But you have to keep that separate account. Keep an eye on that account, because if you don't do a raffle every year and have money going in and out, like we just had a situation with our bank has changed names 3 times in the last year and a half. But three back, they turned around and sent us a letter and said, your account is nearing non-activity for the 3rd year. What is your intention with this account? Well, when you file with the secretary, the charitable registration, the Attorney General's office sends you a letter and says you must keep a separate account and keep whatever in that account, no matter what, but nothing goes in and out except for the raffle. So I took a little note of my own, wrote them and said, this is my response to you. This is directly from the Attorney General's office from the state of New Jersey. The account is required to be separated, and if it has no activity, we can't do anything about that because we can't put money in, and it clearly states that we can't take money out. So we don't do any activity in the raffle account at all. So, but they haven't closed this out and sent it to the state, because after 3 years of inactivity, the state will be given your money from an account that's dormant for 3 years without activity. So that solved that particular problem.
Mel,
Yes.
during the pandemic, we learned something and we told every club to have a rainy day fund. Something similar to like you would keep your savings aside, because as per the Lions law, your general administrative account, whatever you have, it says to be zeroed out at the end of the year. We said, yes, we can do that, but then clubs fold because the pandemic taught us that we can't really do much. So
I
keep
don't.
some rainy day fund aside to sustain yourself.
Now that I've been a Lion for 49 years, and I've never seen where they said you must give out all your money and zero balance your account at the end of that Lions year. It's something that somebody started a long time ago, but I've never seen it in writing. And in my particular club, when we did a circus in August and we needed to have like $5,000 to start up the circus, make the deposit and buy all the stuff for the circus, which was in August. We didn't have any other fundraiser until that fundraiser. We had no choice but to hold money over for those 10 years we did the circus. So it's always been a thing like you should have that. And that's what I'm trying to impress on everybody here is when you're setting up your budgets, look at what you need for now, look at what you're going to need for that first part of the next year, because you need that seed money to be able to approve doing that particular project. If it happens to be a new 5K run you've never done before, you're going to do that more in the summertime. You're not going to do that in the wintertime. So you've got to have the funds to carry over to buy all those bottles of water and the badges and the number of things that I can't think of the name of them. I'm going to call them jumpers, but they're not jumpers. But you have to have the badge or the sheet or cloth that they wear that has a lot of them have a timing machine built into it as part of the programs that know how far this person ran at this particular time. So you need to have funds to pay for those things up front to get things started. So when people tell you we've got a zero balance everything in our account, that's not happening, not in my club, because we would lose out on doing 3 different projects that we wouldn't be able to fund if we did that.
Mel, you need to bring in this at the convention and let everybody know in black and white that this is not a written rule and money can be left over, and it's not because the legacy guys from the 60s, 50s, and 60s, they are still adamant about it.
Well,
I'm just sharing what I have learned.
We've got to change their mind somehow. I'm not sure the convention's going to change their mind, but we can think about doing it there and making some kind of a statement for them. I'll talk to Al Lizzie about that, see where we can fit that in. Okay. When you're the treasurer, you have to turn around and kind of account for all the funds. Sadly, when I was a relatively new Lion back in the 70s, and we did a special project doing school pictures and taking the photos of the kids in the elementary school. And then they bought the packages through the company and we got a portion of the sale for those. And we would make $10,000, $12,000 a year as on one project that we did during the summer months, actually. And the second or third time we did it, I was president and my secretary was a retired military person and supply person. And he kept gnawing at him that something was wrong, that the numbers didn't add up to what we thought we were going to get. And it took 2 years to figure it all out. But one of our members actually had taken several $100s and he was having divorce issues and problems and he needed the money. So he picked up the money from different people, but he didn't turn all of it back into the treasurer like he was supposed to. Took 3 years, but we finally caught up with him and we gave him a choice. You know, you're in a particular job. People need to trust you. If you don't pay us back, we're going to file charges and you'll never do another piece of business where people have to trust you. And in a matter of 10 days, we had all the money back into the club. And of course, he resigned from the club, thankfully. So we didn't have to throw him out. But unfortunately, we see that with some of these things. It's a one time in 49 years that I saw it. But I've seen it more often when we go to the forum and people go through the forum store. And it is actually amazing that somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000, $6,000 worth of items get stolen from the forum store almost every year. Lions stealing from Lions. So the treasurer has to keep track of the money. Secretary has to keep track of the treasurer that he's keeping the money right. And when you get the new car, you got to find out how the financing was going on that. So it wasn't out of your pocket. So that's the big joke. Oh, I just got the new car. It's okay. Every treasurer should be able to work out a budget. When you get the packet later on, you'll find a page near the back that actually lists a multitude of things that you need to include into your budget. Some of them will be optional. Actually, all of them are optional, except for your international dues and your club dues and your district dues. Everything else would be optional. If you want to have a successful club and you want to have people going to district meetings and you want to have people going to charity balls and you want to get support to different things, you need to have certain things in your budget. In my particular club, we always send the president, the secretary, and the treasurer to the charity ball, and then they have to pay for their spouses. When it comes to the governor's testimonial, we send the president and his or her spouse, and then the other officers, if they're going to go, have to pay for themselves. If we have the governor come, we have a vice governor come, if we have a zone chairman come, we have a speaker come, we have to have money in the budget in order to pay for their meals. I've been to clubs where they've turned around and said, we just don't have any money in the treasury to be able to buy your meal. And I'm like, it doesn't matter because I didn't come to be a freeloader anyway. I'd be glad to pay for my meal. So that always works out very well. But you have to be able to put that into your budget, get your people in your club to agree to it. And then once they've done that, then you can have people attending these other functions. And your club gets the benefit of being out there with other people and learning from all of them as well. Okay. One of the things that the treasurer should be making sure is happening is that the club is filling out their 990 income tax return. When they do that, on that, if they're doing the paper one and not doing a 990 short form, then they have to make sure that they are selecting that they are a 501c4, because if you're not a foundation that's filed separately to become a 501c3, all the clubs under an international that are not private foundations now are still a 4. So they have to indicate that on that form. And they also have to, it was box H, I didn't check if that's still the same box, but they also have to put the sub number for Lions International of 0239 in box H on that form. That tells the IRS that we're under the umbrella of Lions Clubs International and we're authorizing a subgroup of them. So you want to make sure that that's in there if you are. The other thing that a lot of clubs lately have been having issues with, there's an annual registration report that gets you a certificate that allows you to go out and do raffles and that sort of thing. And it also allows you to collect money in the state of New Jersey as a charity. And your report for the CIS 200 must be completed every single year and sent into that particular group for the Attorney General's Office, Division of Consumer Affairs. And usually that's done by an accountant. That's the best way to do it because then you know it's done right. And the only thing that stops you from having to fill out a 990 is the actual gross receipts of under $10,000. That's everything, whether you got interest, dividends, you got whatever coming in, you're selling stuff, money like the convention is going to raise $30,000. If they were a separate entity, they would have to file a 990 in order to turn around and report everything because they'd raised more than $10,000. They're not going to make $10,000 as a profit. It's not saying that. It says your gross receipts. So make sure you get all sources of income have to be tabulated to find out if you must fill out a 990 or not. And then you can, if you don't have 10, you can use a 990, the 990N postcard. And basically that just basically is asserting that you didn't make or raise over $10,000 for the year. So that's all that you'd have to do there. But it has to be done every year because if you don't do it for a couple of years, you lose your charitable status and you have to start all over again with IRS to get approved and do whatever else you want to do and collect money. And they seem to have this little nasty habit of fining you anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000, depending on whatever assets your club may have. So you don't want to get into that situation. Okay. Right. Everything that I said about the secretary getting into LCI applies to the treasurer and having to go in and check things. And the one thing the treasurer has to do on a regular basis is when you pull up the report where you're going into your membership and you look at the list of things, it's going to say the billing, or I think it says billing, and you click on that and it'll turn around and show you if there's any outstanding bills that you have at that particular time. You can get, if you don't look at it on a regular basis, it used to be when LCI 2 or 3 years back and before that, if you went in as the treasurer and you clicked on the list and said billing, it popped up with a message right away and said, you have a new bill. Sometimes you would get that in the email in advance of your looking up the account. If you don't do that, you run the risk of getting late charges and getting onto financial suspension, because that could go over 120 days pretty easy if nobody's looking in there to see that they have something that's outstanding. So make sure that that's being done as the treasurer. My other thing for the treasurer is to remind you that even though your clubs, if they don't meet in July and August, and even if they do, your dues for international is due upon receipt of that bill. That means if it's July 2nd or July 3rd that you get that message, or you get that piece of paper that says you owe X number of dollars for your membership, that's the day it's due. Not 2 weeks when you collect it, not a month when you collect it, not 3 months when the club comes back to having activity. They have to be sending out the dues and collecting the dues early on in the year, so that as soon as July 1 hits, the treasurer should have the dues bills ready to go out and get the money back in to pay that dues bill, because by the 14th or 15th, you'll have the paper, and by the 2nd or 3rd, you're going to have the email if you've opted out for electronics. So you want to make sure that you have the money in, so you don't have to keep going to a slush fund or a reserve or something to pay your dues. And that's real important that gets done earlier, because people always seem to be dragging, and we get up to December and the clubs only paid 3/4 of their first half year dues. And then January 1, you get the second half and you're back into the same situation. They didn't collect it because they didn't bill for it. And so we don't get the dues paid, and the office is running off of the reserves of the state, which should not be the case. Okay. When you get the email sent to you after this, page 11 is where the dues information is listed, and it breaks down everything for international, state, district, and gives a subtotal as of right now of $73 plus local club dues. In my particular case, our local club dues is $33. So we have set that as part of our budget, that our total budget be $106. We're going to have to change something in the budget when we talk about that again, because International has a proposal that's going to be voted on in Montreal, where they want to raise the dues $3, then $2, and then another $2, and that vote will be taken in Montreal. And I believe that becomes effective in 2023. And if that's wrong, Jeff, please tell me it's 2022, but I think it was 2023. So they're going to raise the dues a total of $7. That means the treasurer and your boards are going to have to evaluate what we're charging now for dues and how do we account for this. Some clubs will say, well, it's $3, we don't care. Then it becomes $5, we still don't care. Then it becomes $7. You send out the new dues letter and say, you now owe us a $7 increase. And you're going to hear a lot of screaming from a lot of lions. Why did this happen? How come? I didn't approve this. Well, it's going to be approved at convention the way it has to be done if they get it approved in Montreal. It actually was something they wanted to do 2 years ago, and it got postponed and postponed because of the pandemic. Thank God they didn't go crazy and say, yes, you have to pay that anyway. So keep a lookout for page 11 in that Treasury program. One other thing that you may or may not want to do, some clubs, if they raise a lot of money, and we have some clubs that actually raise $100,000 and some $1,000s a year. That's a very tempting sum of money for people, and being a banker, it always makes me wonder, how safe are we with these people being in this position or that position? And the way to make sure that you're safe is to have a surety bond for the treasurer and or secretary, because they're basically handling the money for a certain amount of dollars. It might be 35,000, it might be higher, it might be less. So that's going to be something that you want to consider. Do we need to do that? Do we not need to do that? If you don't have a lot of money in your treasury and you break a project, you get close back to zero, and then you do another project, you get back to zero. You're watching the funds flow back and forth. I'm always amazed when the board or the general membership sees the financial information from the club and they don't relate back to what was that for. It's just, well, the treasurer is giving it, so it's like almost a rubber stamp. And it should never be a rubber stamp. Somebody should be looking at the numbers and say, well, what was that $18,000 used for? That's a big number. But I've seen it go by. A couple of years back, when my own club, the secretary at the time decided that we needed a lot of supplies from LCI. So myself and my wife weren't at the meetings, and we had a really, really healthy balance, which was going to be paying for part of our 50th anniversary. While we were away, they decided that we would buy banners, we would buy this, we'd buy signs. $4,000 was spent. Nobody ever asked why, and nobody ever asked who approved it. So if you're not on top of it and you're not looking at it, you can't let those kind of numbers slide. Yes, it's money that we didn't, it was fortunately not public money. It was our own money, the administration. But it's one of those things where you never really want to see that happen. And when you have it and people come to a meeting and they don't remember, oh yeah, that's being held for that purpose. They just see dollars on the sheet and say, let's go spend it. You got to be careful of that as the treasurer and make sure that doesn't happen. Unfortunately, if you're not in the state, you can't do much about it. So be careful of that.
Mel, are you going to send an email with the documents about this?
No, I'm not. I believe Rohel or Varsha are going to send both of them to you.
We
Okay.
already mentioned that we are going to send the presentation with everyone who joined in this meeting. So I will
Okay.
share with, I have both the presentation for treasurer and secretary. So we will share it.
Thank you, Varshaji.
Thank you.
Okay, the other thing, last thing I think I want to hit onto real quick is the clubs sometimes pay for the convention registrations for their delegates. Sometimes they buy packages for particular officers. Sometimes they pay for rooms and meals and mileage. International convention registration is a reasonable fee, but sometimes the clubs offer to do that. USA Canada Forum and Leadership Forums, the Leo Forum including money for that, and Lions Day at the UN. If you've never ever been there, that's a fantastic program to go to. You got to kind of do it once. If you're lucky enough, as I was years ago when Tae-Sup Lee was coming in to be our president many years ago, and the fellow that won the peace poster contest was Andre de Villis from Cape Town, South Africa. When he got done explaining his peace poster, there was 600 plus people in the main main UN room, everybody was on their feet and cheering and voting for him to be president of the world, because he had a better concept of how people should get together and live than our politicians will ever have. But it's very rewarding to see how they think about it. And it's just as rewarding now with the new speech program where they have people who can't paint or can't see too well. They can write a story, explain that story to you and tell you what's going on. And it's just amazing how the young people at 10 to or 11 to 13 years old can have that kind of concept. And you wonder why 21-year-olds and 45-year-olds can't think better. And don't even get me started on the US Congress, because I don't care what party you're in, but sometimes I wonder what they think about, if they think. So it's kind of interesting to see the young kids at the future and say there is hope. And that's part of what that's all about. It's a fantastic program. So that winds up our hour and 10 minutes almost. When you get the treasurer's report, my phone number and my email and stuff is on the very last page. There's the contact information. And I know if you have questions, I think there's a whole bunch of them. There's 20 things in the chat. Let's see. Oh, okay.
Mel, yeah, the question here, the first one a while ago is how long a club, so it is for secretaries, question for the secretary, Tom. How long a club is supposed to keep its records? I have records for the past 40 to 50 years.
Well, now they have something to plan for their history for their 50th anniversary, because they can go back and look at it. If it's electronic and they have it already on file as electronic information now, where they've uploaded, loaded to that, the paper stuff can go. It depends on them if they want to plan something for the future, because your 50th anniversary is special, your 75th anniversary is special, your 100th is special. So a lot of clubs, when I was on the board and we were coming up to our 100th for LCI, they were actually printing a book based on the history of all those things that they had. And their books were like 1.5 inches thick. They were really solid with pictures and information and names and situations. So that's an individual thing that the club has to decide. I know 50 years worth of records is a real big amount of paper. That's something, I think it's called shredded truck. Probably wouldn't do justice to it on the first trip in. He'd probably have to bring the bigger truck. But that's a club has to decide how they want to use that, or if they care to use that in the future. And maybe they want to just go through and glean some things out of it now. And as they prepare some of that information to come up to their 50th, they can get rid of the original stuff, which may or may not be worth having. So they got to handle that way, I think.
Mel, that was a question for me. This is Lion Cash Delori. I had like 3-4 boxes of it. And I think you got a great idea that we should make a kind of book or something and scan them up and have a nice 1.5 book. We were thinking maybe after we do that and turn it over to the Historical Society of our town, because they will be very happy to. I talked to them, is yeah, they'll be great to have something in the historical with the Historical Society. My next question is actually, you mentioned that nominations should take place sometime in December and followed by the first reading in February and second March. I thought it's always if March was the first reading and April was the second, and then we have to report by May 15 or something.
That's what I said, is that if you look at International's information, they'll tell you that schedule you just had works. That's what they have in their literature. But it doesn't work for them to print the vital statistics book, which I have over my head here. It's a little book. Well, I never get this to show up real good.
Okay.
It's a little book, but it's like 1 inch thick and very small print. In order for them to get this out for the first part of July, when the new year starts, they need the information earlier than May. And that's why I suggest that you go earlier with your elections, and the nominations committee starts working in December, comes back to their board in January, has the first reading in your February meeting, have your second reading at your second meeting in March, whichever, I don't know, sometimes you have two. We only have one, so I'm thinking just on our club, but
Right.
it has to be something in March. And remember, you have to send out notices in between that says, we had the first reading, this is the nominations, the second reading is going to be here, and the vote, a letter that the vote is going to be taking place on has to be received by your members 10 days before the actual election date. So you start pushing everything back and throwing in an extra 10 days. You can't be in April doing your elections, and many of our clubs do. And then they wonder why they don't get any information in July and August and September, because it all goes to the governor, because they're not in the book. And so to try and get us in the book, we want to move it up earlier and make sure we're much more timely than what international has. And I don't know why they don't want to change it, but it doesn't work for them and they don't seem to see it.
I have one more question, small one. You mentioned that we have the admin account and we have the activity account or the charity account. Besides that, if you're doing a raffle, we should have a separate account in itself. And
You're
that should be
You're actually required by state law to have a separate raffle account. If you look at your CR 200 report or your renewal form, it's going to tell you that in very plain English, you must have a raffle account and nothing but raffle money can go in, raffle expenses be paid, and the expenses include paying off the people who were the winners. And then you have your net to whatever you're going to do with it. But you can't put other monies back and forth in that account. It has to be separate. They want the name of the bank it belongs, that has that account. They want the account number, and they want to know who is the individual responsible for maintaining that account. So it's required by law. It's not something that's optional. Your tail twister having an account is optional. Whether you want to have other kind of things are optional, but that particular account, if you do raffles, then you must have that separate account.
So the refer account, we apply for permits or license or something, that money come from the admin account or somewhere, right? It has to come from somewhere. So we can take it off from the raffle account, put it back there.
Once your raffle is over, when you're doing a raffle, you have to tell them what the purpose of the raffle is.
Right.
That's like the back of the second page. You have to tell them what the purpose of the raffle is going to be for and how the money is going to be used. You can use it for those purposes. You can then, transfer it out, make a donation to this or that or whatever, rather than doing it through your
The
registration.
money can go into the charity account?
No.
Yet it actually could go into your charity account.
Yeah, because raffle, we raised $7,000 out of 7 expenses and something was left with 6,800, 200 expenses. So half the money goes to the winner and half the money goes to the club. The money goes to the club into the raffle account. And we can transfer the money to our charity account and then write the checks from there.
For what you're saying there, as far as the distribution for the winners, you can take that right out of the raffle account. The proceeds that are left, it's your money, you can transfer that into your charity account.
That's good.
But you have to maintain a separate account and records for all of that, of how that's used. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? I don't see any other question. Rohil, any other question in the chat box?
I don't see anything anymore.
No, I think whatever question Jeff and some Subarna answer them. So if you have any question regarding a secretary or the treasurer, please do write us at lionvarsha@gmail.com. I will carry forward that question to Mel, and I'm going to share the full presentation into our district account. And this recording is completely recording, and we are going to put it on YouTube, District 16J official YouTube. So it will be stay over there. So if you miss anything, if you want to share with your club members, you can just share the YouTube link. It's very easy. right?
And I
And
was
once
saying,
again, thank you so much for joining. I just want to say a big thank you, ID Jeff Gans, for joining this refresher. PCC, Armando Guerra, thank you so much for joining this refresher. Our first VDG, Cash, our second VDG, Evelio, PCC, Jack Romano, and immediate past district governor, Nalit Patel, and all the members of District 16J, 16N, 16L, and all around the world. Thank you so much for joining this midwinter refresher. And thank you, PID Mel. One more time, happy birthday to you. And over to you, Rohel.
Okay, we'll see all you guys soon. Thank you very
Thank you.
much for the
Thank you
opportunity.
so much. Thank you so much, Spike Mel, and happy birthday. And before we close this evening's session, we have some announcements to make. Tomorrow at the same time at 7:00 p.m., we'll have the second part of the refresher series on the subject Club President and LCI Resources, to be facilitated by International Director Jeff Gans. And I hope everyone here will also join us for tomorrow. And on Thursday, we'll have the membership orientation. As I mentioned earlier in the emails, it is a multiple district initiative, and you need to register to join this session. And of course, this is also facilitated by ID Jeff. And the link has been provided by PCC Mahes, and a reminder has been sent. I've seen the emails. And each session is very important, so please consider attending all of them. And that's it for tonight.
One more,
Okay.
one more announcement. All the club representative today, please share this information to your club members. We are doing some communication, but if you can share in your membership, okay, this is a president training going on tomorrow, membership orientation, then My Lion, it will be great for all the clubs, because we are sharing only to the president and the secretary and the zone chairs. So I request, please share with your club membership, because each and every club member must know each and everything about LCI, not only for the officers. This training is for everybody. This refresher is for everybody.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, of course, on Friday, of course, we have the My Lion, so
Yeah.
by PCC Mahes. So we have a good lineup of refresher courses or sessions here. So thank you again for coming tonight, and see you all tomorrow. Stay safe and warm. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
All right, everyone.
Oh, Cash, you have a question? I forgot.